hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel.
Peace, family. This is your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to Night School. Every night here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, we hold Night School, where I break down the most controversial topics, the most engaging debates, the most interesting subjects going on in the world today. And tonight is no different. We'll be covering a lot of, I would say, important stuff going on in the world today. We're going to talk about Ghana and them booting the West. We're going to talk about y'all's president, Donald Trump, and what he wants to do to your student loans. And of course, the Shannon Sharpe lawsuit was announced today, $50 million. We'll get into that a little bit. And I got two amazing guests who are going to help me think through some of this stuff. And we're going to talk about some pop culture. We're going to talk about some R&B music. We're going to talk about some of, I think, the most interesting stories going on today in the music world as well. So let's get right to it, because I don't want to waste y'all time, because I know it's late. And it's good to see y'all face. I hope y'all had a good weekend. For those of you who celebrate Easter, I hope you put on your Easter colors. I hope y'all did y'all Easter thing, had a good time with the family. Other people celebrated 420, which, as we all know, is Luther Vandross's birthday. And I hope you celebrated that properly. If you didn't, maybe you also celebrated that weed smoking holiday. Whatever you did for 420, whether it was Easter, whether it was the most high above or it was the most high that you wrapped and rolled, whatever, it's all good. I just hope you had a good time over the weekend. But today we're back and we're talking about some important things. And let's start with this Ghana story really, really fast. Ghana, the top gold producer in Africa, just told all foreign buyers to get the hell out. And soon, the deadline is April 30th. That's right. No more sideline buying, no more under the table export deals. Now only gold bond. That's Ghana's brand new state-run, what do you call it? Like a gold board. They're the ones who can buy, sell, and export small-scale gold. That means if you're not a Ghanaian, you can't eat at this table unless Goldbot says so. Now, this matters because the United States and China are neck deep in a trade war, and both are scrambling for gold to get their shaky economies back up to speed. And gold just hit $3,200 an ounce. And Ghana just flipped the script on who gets access. This is not just about trade, though. This is about sovereignty. This is about a black nation saying, nah, we're not going to let foreign hands snatch our wealth and leave us broke. And it's about time we did this. But that's not everything. Namibia just dropped the mic on the United States, too. Starting April 1st, Americans need visas to enter Namibia. U.S. citizens who used to just slide through visa-free will now need permission just to vacation in Windhoek. This announcement came days after Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah was sworn in as Namibia's first woman president. And this is a major first move. I love this, y'all. This is what power shifts look like. I love to see Africa reclaiming. It's not enough to have black presidents. It's not enough to have a black cabinet. It's not enough to have a whole country of black folk. It's about reclaiming your borders. It's about reclaiming your resources. It's about reclaiming your narratives. When you do that, then you're self-sufficient. Then you're truly engaging in a kind of nationalist project that can lead to an outcome that you want. Now, that ain't enough, because you can oppress people internally. You can do harm internally. You can be despotic. Is a good word. You can be despotic internally, but we got to at least start there. So shout out to Ghana for what they're doing. One more story before I bring my guests in. And by the way, while we're here, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let us know that you're rocking with us. Hit the like button right now, the subscribe button. And if you're so inclined, hit the join button. Because when you hit the join button, you become a paid member of our community, which gives us the financial stability we need to do the work that we do. But in the meantime, just hit the like button on this content. Just hit the subscribe button on this content. We really, really appreciate when you do that. Also, drop your name in. Let us know where you're writing in from, your name, and also your city, and either your state or your country, because this is indeed a global classroom. And this is a conversation that I guarantee you tonight we're going to have some controversy, some disagreement, not the bitter disagreement, just disagreement. And when you do, weigh in the comments section. Again, classrooms are best when people are engaged. So let's have that conversation. Can we do that? But please know we have chat moderators. So if you get out of pocket, we're going to let you know. You're going to get a warning, and you're going to get muted, and you're going to get kicked out the room. but you don't get kicked out the room. So let's make sure that doesn't happen. You know, I don't want to leave my guests waiting anymore. I'll do the Trump story at the end because I'm tired of talking about Donald Trump. Let me bring in two of my favorite people in the whole world. On the screen right is a brother who I haven't known long. I've known him almost a year now. But he is one of my colleagues, one of the other co-hosts on the Joe Budden podcast. He is also an extraordinary singer who has an EP out right now, which is what's the name? Is the EP BDE?
No, it's called Before Her.
Before Her, right? BDE is the song.
Yes.
It is one of the songs on the EP, but it's called Before Her. It's an excellent EP. Has been out for a few months now, and you sleeping if you ain't heard it yet. Trust me. He is one of the best R&B voices of his generation. Somebody who is underappreciated for his extraordinary talent, not just as a host, but also as a singer, and soon to be host of his own YouTube channel. Y'all check that out in just a little bit. I hope I'm not breaking any secrets, but I hope in a couple weeks y'all get to see him on even more platforms. Give it up for Imani. He is the dopest. And
thank you. That was amazing.
On the other, don't get used to it. On the other side is one of the most brilliant scholars of her generation, an elder statesman of her.
Starting here tonight. This is where we're gonna start.
This is not water in this glass.
So no. What exactly does that make you?
I'm younger. But let's stay focused, y'all. Let's stay focused.
I'm like, what does that even mean?
I'm shutting up.
Seriously, this woman is a brilliant scholar, a brilliant writer. She's written a couple of really important books. One of my favorite of which, I moved my bookshelf, but one of my favorites is this one. It's called America Goddamn. Violence, Black Women, and the Struggle for Justice. This is a powerful, 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 powerful book. The first book is powerful too and brilliant. This book is my favorite of hers, and the next one is coming out will probably be my next favorite because that's really, really good too. Haven't read bits and pieces of it. She left her computer open one day in the library. She is a professor of women's and gender studies at The Ohio State University. She's currently a visiting professor at Georgetown University. She also writes for everything from Teen Vogue to People. You've seen her on BET. You've seen her everywhere. Her name is Dr. Treva B. Lindsay. Dr. Lindsay, welcome as well.
Thank you.
So happy to have y'all here. First of all, before we get into anything of importance, because I try not to talk about anything of importance. Talk to me about y'all weekend. I mean, did y'all do the Easter thing?
No, I'm over
it. What does over it mean? Is it like a religious thing, or is it just like you just don't want to throw on your teal suit?
It's just not the same. From what I remember within my childhood, even though I wasn't the most religious, but we did still look forward to Easter. We looked forward to the festivities. We look forward to the family get-togethers, and it just don't hit the same. I don't know what that reason is for, but it just doesn't hit.
That's the thing I was thinking about too, Treva, like, because I feel the same way, like even just watching people, and I'm like, is it just that that's not my world anymore, so I don't see it? Or is like our culture different? Like, are people not doing the get-togethers and the big egg hunts or the big, for church folk, we all went to church, we all got dressed up. I mean, we went to Shirley Shop in North Philly and got our suits, and we're going to have some pastels. If nothing else, we're going to have them pastel colors, and we're going to go and eat, Like, are people doing that anymore?
It feels like it's less folks doing that in the same way, and that just might be my perception. I did go to an Easter brunch with like my friend's family from high school. Her mom hosted something. We had an Easter egg hunt for the kids. They had a golden egg that was hidden, but they've come up because in their golden egg was $20. So that was different.
Shit.
Northeast DC doing an egg hunt, in so-and-so's maybe backyard, maybe, playground, something. It just was very different. but heartening that the kids still got to had dye on their hands from doing the eggs and stuff like that. So I was heartened to be there. I love any excuse to get dressed up. So I still had like an Easter outfit, but it was definitely more cute dress than Easter focus, right? Like it wasn't pastel. There was no hat of that, but I did get to make Easter baskets for my niece and nephew. So
that's kind of dope. I will say that's kind of dope. On a religious front, I do want to acknowledge, even though again it ain't my bag, Pope Francis passed away. Mm-hmm. I don't know if people knew that, but Pope Francis died on Easter Monday after a protracted illness. What was interesting to me, and again, I'm sending love and care and comfort to everyone who loved the pontiff, to everyone who is of the Catholic faith, but everyone else who just appreciated him. I mean, he was a very special guy. He was the most progressive pope we've seen, and which says a lot. Imani, you grew up Catholic, no?
Yeah, I was baptized Catholic. Did my Holy Communion, did my confirmation. I'm very familiar with Pope Francis, and rest in peace, of course, to him. I really got a better insight on who he was through watching the Two Popes show, which was funny enough. I had no clue. It was kind of based off of his transition, because he was the first Pope, I think, that took over for an actual living Pope at the moment.
Right.
So it was just an interesting story. I kind of lost touch with my Catholicism as I got older. But I have nothing but respect for the religion. I do think.
Do Black Catholics, and I know you can't speak for all Black Catholic people, but
I'll try.
Maybe just the light skinned ones. Do Black Catholics care about the Pope? And I mean that in the sense of I've seen white people be like, the Pope coming and they shaking and trying, because the Pope came to Philly, and when the Pope came to Philly, I guess almost a decade ago now. I don't know, it was a while ago, but maybe 5-6 years ago. People lost their minds. I mean, the city shut down for a week. And it was mostly white people who cared. But I wondered about the Black Catholics. Do y'all get invested in that stuff?
My mother, to rest in peace, to the day she went, she was Catholic. She stayed Catholic. She believed in the religion and every aspect of it. And when anything came up about the Pope, Archbishop, anything, she was there in tears, enjoying, embracing it. So yeah, and I have other Black family members who felt the same. It's not a Black or white thing. It's that religion really, I don't want to say speaks to a certain level of dedication, but you have to really be dedicated in a different way. Maybe not the same with other religions. There's some kind of, I won't say looseness, but there's a more calm. Catholicism is really strict. Strict. To follow, you have to be
strict.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I want to again honor, for me, watching one that was the most progressive of our lifetime. I can't think of a Pope in recent history beyond maybe Pope John the 23rd, who had quite the record that Pope Francis had. I saw this again, and people are saying this in the comments, right? Was calling churches every week in Gaza, spoke very clearly about that. In fact, in his last address on Easter, even while sick, was still committed to saying what was happening was terrible. In Palestine, also opened up interfaith dialogues that hadn't been happening, was talking about inclusivity in different ways, actually holding the church accountable for sexual abuse, talking about opening the doors to migrants, right? There are things that I think are very important. One of a few talking about climate change. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that while also having all of the critiques and remaining things that we have of Catholicism and other religious traditions. And also note in this moment, right, Christian evangelicals are celebrating his death right now. There's a
really
for that. Yes. I mean, he pulls in a very different direction as leader of this. I mean, he also is one of the most, in terms of, I mean, he's a, they would call him the DEI Pope. He has diversified the ranks of bishops from so many votes from Latin America and Africa and Asia to the positions of bishops within the Catholic Church since he did this. Even having conversations about LGBTQIA Catholics and people is something that feels very different to evangelicals. And if you noticed in Project 2025, there's kind of a radical far right Catholic group that's very important to the Project 2025 kind of agenda. And they're hoping, right, to get in the ears of certain people as the new pontiff will be, the process of having the new pontiff assigned to that role. And so he's also came in the crosshairs of many transnational corporations because of the way he's talked about labor and other things. So I don't want to underestimate the cultural significance of his loss and the fact that
do you think another pope, do you think the next pope, you know how you go from like Obama to Trump and Trump to Biden and Biden back to, like, do you think the next pope is going to be super conservative?
My sense is yes, but I don't know. I mean, it's really hard. I mean, I'm heartened that he flanked himself with a different set of leadership around him as well, that hopefully there's a larger pool, right? This really does sound like a DEI, a larger pool of religious leaders to pull from. But there's a lot of pressure. I mean, he really took the Catholic Church in ways that I think ran against certain ideas and formidable players in the modern Catholic Church. And I think it's important to say that, and that, I have many feelings about the Catholic Church, about Christianity, about all of these things. But I think that acknowledging where he stood in relationship to that tradition is really important. And I think he held that office in high esteem, held that role and very high esteemed, and definitely garnered a level of respect I hadn't had for the pontiff in quite some time.
I got to say that's true. I mean, I was surprised at how progressive he was. And it's a shame that calling out the genocide in Gaza is seen as a progressive position.
Right.
It's a human position to say we shouldn't kill babies, right? He wasn't progressive on things that I cared about, certain things like maybe IVF or something like that. Some things that are just what the church are about. The church is never going to fully say like, gay marriage is here but if you made like a list of 10 things, like he's at the top of the list. He's at the top of the list of popes and of progressive leadership or of leaders in terms of these progressive issues. So shout out to him. The last thing I want to say about this, and I got to move on, Manny, is Vice President J.D. Vance visited him yesterday. Now, I'm not I don't believe it.
Would you?
I just say it.
You think they took him out?
I'm thinking more like not like a conspiracy, like a sniper, more like there's a demon in our presence. Like it took all his spiritual energy to keep. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just saying, like it's a hell of a coincidence. You know what I mean?
I do think the energy you put around you manifests some things. So
that's all I'm saying.
Let me just say that as far as this all goes, I really do hope that there is some level of balance and we just don't have a total switch. It will be felt. The supporters and the followers and the people who really look for the Vatican and the religion itself as direction and leadership, and the Pope being the top of that, to go from someone so progressive, so changing, and to, it's like you said, it's the Obama to Trump switch. That's the last thing you need in your religion, especially when you're finding that all across around the world. Like there needs to be some balance. So no, I don't think that you're ever going to get somebody that progressive that soon, because I think they kind of figure that out. But if there's some way to get some balance, then great.
They're going to ask some different questions. Rosa Billy writes in and says, there's a community note on Tiny Pants Vance's condolences post about the touch of JD Vance's demonic hand. I'm not going to get into that part. I didn't know that they called JD Vance Tiny Pants Vance. I didn't know that was a thing.
I didn't know that either.
I mean, I saw him, and Dr. Lindsay here is an Ohio State football fan, of course. And this is a good year to be one. She was one when they didn't win, so I got to give her that.
All right. So
I don't want to make it sound like you are a coattail rider or a bandwagon hopper. You've been consistent.
Outside of getting cursed out for maybe my Sade takes, I'll get cursed out now for just saying go Georgia Bulldogs. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it.
Oh, my Lord.
I'm sorry.
You set yourself up.
I'm sorry.
Why Georgia?
At least you have a winning program. I mean, I don't even know why Dr. Hill is in this conversation. Oh,
Temple University won a game recently or two.
Yeah, they good.
Good. Excellent for them. Shout out to Temple University. No shade.
One day you'll get there.
CUNY, my guy.
That was all shade. But the only reason I was bringing it up was because JD Vance I watched him drop the trophy.
Well, yes.
Like, you had one job. Just don't drop the trophy. That's like the only thing you can do to fuck this up.
I mean, JD Vance, I have so little to say, but you know, I feel like he met the Pope, and the Pope was like, I got to go tell God myself what this man is down here doing. Like, I didn't even need it to be demonic. Like, I got to tell God to their face.
Right.
God.
Right after Easter too.
People's like what?
Yeah, it's time to go.
I gave it up. I gave the last couple years I could have had on this planet being the pontiff to come up here and tell you this ain't it.
I tell you face to face, this shit ain't working. All right, so we gotta move to a serious story. This Shannon Sharpe story has been all over the internet tonight, and I want to talk about it. Shannon Sharpe, a Hall of Fame football player, the star of ESPN's First Take, hosted by Stephen A. Smith, and the host of Club Shay Shay, which may be at this point the biggest, if not the biggest platform we've seen for podcasts, now finds himself in the middle of a storm. A woman who's going by the name of Jane Doe says that Shannon Sharpe assaulted her twice, threatened her life, and secretly filmed them having sex. She says that they met at an LA gym when she was 19. And what started off messy turned violent really quickly. Now, things get murkier when we get more information. Her lawyer is Tony Busby. If you know who Tony Busby is, then I don't have to say anything else. If you don't know, this is the person who represented the client who sued Jay-Z and who later, based on my understanding of the information, later recanted or acknowledged or said that she was sort of compelled to falsify testimony. That lawsuit got tossed with prejudice, which means the court won't hear it again. And now Busby's back targeting, I won't say targeting, but suing Shannon Sharpe with a case built on very shocking claims and a very, very high dollar ask. The $50 million is what the lawsuit is for. Now, Shannon Sharpe and his team are not flinching on this. They are responding very aggressively. I reached out to Shannon, had a brief interaction with him. We didn't get to talk about the details. But I do know that they are very serious about defending themselves from these allegations. Shannon Sharpe fired back. They called it a full-blown shakedown. And they say they've got receipts, including texts that paint a different picture of the woman, quote, asking for it rough. In this statement that Sharpe shared on his Instagram, the woman who Sharpe's team identified said in the text, quote, I want you to put a dog collar around my neck and choke me while we're bracketed having sex. First things first. I need to say a few things here just to set the table so that there's no lack of clarity. Regardless of what we think about Tony Busby, we should begin from a premise of taking seriously any accusation of sexual assault that anybody makes, male or female, but particularly in a society that ignores or discounts or dismisses even the allegations of women or the reports of women or the experiences of women. We have to pay careful attention, be very mindful not to do that. Second, I don't care how many receipts you have of a woman saying that she wants to have rough sex. That doesn't mean that you can't be sexually assaulted. Anyone can be sexually assaulted, including people who like rough sex, including sex workers. She's not a sex worker, but including sex workers, including strippers. You know, and I'm saying all these things because we've seen people accused of things, and then they point to the occupation or the sexual proclivities or the sexual past of the accuser as if it's exculpatory, as if that means that the person isn't guilty. And I'll tell you a story about that maybe if we get a minute. But yes, so I just want to put that out there. I think we shouldn't rush to judgment, especially given who Tony Busby is and his history. And I've known who Tony Busby is for a long time, and he has a history of aggressively threatening celebrities or pressuring celebrities. Let me use a better word: pressuring celebrities to settle cases behind the scenes to avoid public allegations. More than once, Tony Busby's claims and Tony Busby's allegations and Tony Busby's clients have been proven to be less than truthful. And I think we need to actually sort through the facts, find out what really happened, and get to the truth here, so that we can get to some semblance of justice. But I want to be very clear that Tony Busby's history of false accusations does matter. Not this woman's, but Tony Busby's, number one. But also, Tony Busby being a shitty person, which I believe he is, and a woman liking rough sex, which she may, doesn't mean that she wasn't sexually assaulted. So I just want to lay that out there as my position, because I want to be responsible. I think it'd be irresponsible not to lay both of those things out. But I do want to get y'all's take on this, because this is this shocked me, y'all, for all the reasons. For all the reasons. Amanda, I'm going to start with you. When you heard the allegations, what'd you think?
I'm gonna be totally honest. As ignorant as it is, and probably shouldn't be, the moment I heard Tony Busby name, I instantly thought, okay, shake down. Only because of recent events and things that have been said of recent. Once I got out of that thought, I said, let me go ahead and just kind of put my bias to the side and kind of look into what the details were that were given. And from some of the details, seems very graphic. They seem to have a very graphic relationship at some point. I agree with you. We shouldn't instantly think that this is not possible solely because they had that graphic type of communication or interaction. I'm always intrigued as to why, unless there's like a statute of limitations thing on a criminal side, why the instant cure for all of this is always financial first. Like I'm not against that at some point, because I do think you should also hit people where it hurts the most, and sometimes that is their pocket. But I would like to know why there are no criminal charges filed as well. Like, for me, I think that's kind of what leads us to think that this becomes just solely a money grab, because there's no real justice that you're looking to get on that side. And that could also be another ignorant way of looking at it, because maybe that's just not a possibility for the person. Maybe just that avenue is just a little more lengthy, and it's probably easier to, go the civil route. But I don't like hearing these stories, because it puts us in a position where I like Shannon Sharpe. I like what he does. I like what he brings to media. I like what he did within sports. But I'm also the person that knows I don't doubt anything. I don't put anything past nobody. I don't think he's above any crime that he possibly could commit. So I want to go ahead and kind of wait to see what more evidence we get. I do think the biggest thing for me that pointed out, I would like for these guys that are very smart and very well about how they move within business, maybe be a little better at the women you choosing to deal with consistently. Like, and when I say that, when I read the text messages, there were a lot of things that young lady was saying that already to me told me something wasn't wrapped too well as far as you looking to build a relationship with this person. So I would have liked for someone like,
but you know what, man, I don't know if that's what Shannon's looking for. I think when you're 58 and you're dating a 19-year-old woman that you met at the gym, you there for a good time.
That's my point.
A long time.
But that's my point. At 50 something, and I stand on this, and as someone who's 41, I don't see what business you got with a 19-year-old. I'm sorry, people can say that's legal. You're allowed to do whatever you want. Cool. I don't see it. I don't get it. when you're maturing, when you're thinking about maturation of your life and all the things that you have to risk, I wouldn't want to risk my legacy, my everything that I have on the tender 19-year-old age woman who don't know nothing about nothing, who don't have nothing to lose.
Who's younger than your children?
Yeah. It's just,
I mean,
it just doesn't make sense to me when we're talking about men or just people in general who move within this business and speak to just being crafty and just very business sound. The people you sleep with plays into your business. The people you now
so let me bring Treva in for a minute, because there's a couple things you said and a couple things that the audience is saying that I think are interesting and noteworthy. One, Treva, talk about and say whatever else you want to say too, but there's this idea from people that the civil suit is less ethical and principled than the criminal suit. Why would somebody, if you have the option still, and Jay-Z said this, right? If I did this, then why are we not going then sue, then call the police? Like, if I really did this, call the police. Why would somebody, what is a legitimate reason why somebody may only go the civil route and not the criminal route? Just start there.
Sure. And I appreciate this conversation. This is a really hard conversation to have for any number of reasons. And I'll say the criminal legal system does not bode well for sexual assault survivors. That's just the reality. Most, even folks who pursue criminal, often do not get the outcome that they had hoped for. Some people are, very opposed to the criminal legal system and its potential outcomes, whether it's incarceration, probation, entering the carceral system whatsoever, and then being engaged in that way, which often makes you criminalized too, even if you're coming forward, and the kind of way that you're scrutinized through the criminal trial and through criminal proceedings. And ultimately, some of the things that you're asked to do within that police you and offer a level of surveillance that I don't think is helpful, often to sexual assault survivors. With civil pursuits and routes, and I think when we talk about what is reparative, what does justice look like, I think that's going to vary for a number of survivors of sexual violence. I think being able to, this kind of reparative thing that money offers, a sense of, comfort, a sense of being able to be okay, more than okay, right? That number would come down even if there were a settlement. Like, that is a way to say, like, I've acknowledged that this horrible thing happened and I want to have the resources to move on, the resources to do whatever. I get how that feels extractive and maybe even extortionist, but I think that we have to look at the systems that we have available to us to think about reparative, restorative, or transformative justice, and they are extraordinarily limited. And I think a more recent example of this is thinking about one of the cases against Sean Diddy Combs when we think about Cassie and what she had asked for, right? And that's under a different kind of Survivors Act and law where, where statute of limitations would have prevented certain kinds of criminal proceedings for what had happened, that compelled a certain kind of reaction from them that got the ball rolling on a set of other very important conversations about violence, about sexual violence, and what she endured, right? And if you read her deposition that she gave and then had the unfortunate instance of seeing the video of what happened, the deposition was actually much less harsh than what we actually saw on that video. And so I think it's really important to say that there are various ways that survivors get to respond to what justice looks like for them and what kind of process they want to have with regards to feeling some semblance of whole, right? Because no matter what, they're always going to be post-violence, post whatever incident that happened. And so what are the things that can assist them on moving forward in a way that acknowledges that something happened, but also gives them a kind of resource base from which to move?
Let me ask both of you questions. Treva, you answer first, and I want to get Imani's take on this too. I stipulated at the beginning that we shouldn't be judging a woman based on the kind of sex she likes.
Yes.
Right? Like wanting rough sex, wanting to get choked, wanting to get tied up, whatever. I mean, frankly, I don't want to get that graphic because it'll be a distraction. But whatever you're into, as long as it's consensual, you're into it, right? So whatever, right? That doesn't mean that doesn't make you rapeable. That doesn't make you more eligible for sexual assault. It's It just doesn't matter what people are into, right? By that same token, should we not look at Shannon? Should we hold that same kind of arm's length skepticism when we look at Shannon at 58 dating a 19-year-old?
I think somewhat a little different here. And I'll say this just because there are a level of power dynamics that exist in that between a 19-year-old young woman, I'm inclined to say girl, based on my own kind of framing of someone who routinely teaches 18 to 20 something year olds, that feels very young, still has a teen in the age there. There's the money dynamic, the power dynamic. There's so many dynamics that are present there that I think make consent far cloudier than saying, I like rough sex. Here are the parameters by which I mean that and what I want. And still being able to say no to certain things even within that, right? So you might want to get choked one night and then not want to get choked another.
Right.
You
just
might,
like any other sex, you could want to get fucked one night and then the next night not want to.
You might want,
not to be too graphic, but
you might want kink. You might want all of these things. I mean, the thing with kink and BDSM and other communities that think about, right, what we would consider pain or violence in the context of sex is some of the most consent-based communities, because everything with that has a level of like, what is okay, what is not okay. There are safe words, there are permissible, like there's levels of comfort that people are attracting. But I do think that negotiation happening between a 19-year-old and an almost 60-year-old who is a multi-millionaire is deeply troubling. And I think that at least deserves us to have the conversation, as Imani was saying earlier, of like, bro, there's something just wrong with that. We're not saying necessarily criminal or illegal, but let's talk about the things that are really poor decisions and potentially really harmful decisions for you and for another person and whoever you're involved with. I think that's important to say in this moment. And I've always thought, as fun as some moments can be with Shannon Sharpe and Club Shay Shay, whatever, the misogyny there is very real too. And so that doesn't make me think, because I've had moments where I'm like, wow, that was really misogynist and sexist and engaged, like in the way that he's engaged. I think about things he said about like Meg Thee Stallion and had to apologize on his show. Like I have very distinct memories of the ways that he's talked about women, specifically Black women. And I think that still doesn't make me be like, so I know he's a rapist, right? There's a large stretch in there. But I do think it matters that someone who has held and expressed very misogynistic views is someone who is in this consensual relationship with a 19-year-old, and we can have a different conversation about the culture in which we talk about consent and sexual violence and relationships and intimacy in more substantive ways. It's not as black and white as like, did he do this? Did he not do this? Is she lying? Is not lying? Right, she not lying, but rather, what are the contexts in which this becomes believable? And this is something that routinely does happen. How do we address that?
I want to say, before I say anything, I want to extend the same level of understanding and grace to him that we are going to also extend to her, because at the end of the day, we don't know the facts. We don't know anything. We're all going based off of assumptions and what we see thus far. But what I will say is, in these situations, especially with the power dynamics and the age difference, I'm just always confused to the arrested development that these older men are having and why they're seeking to have this type of connection with younger women, especially that young. Especially if you have daughters, especially if the daughters that you have are actually older than the women that you're sleeping with. Like you said, you referred to the comments he made in regards to other women who happen to be younger women within the space. It's to sound like a little kid. It's icky. It's yucky. It's just nasty. To me, it just comes off very nasty, and it doesn't make you a rapist. It doesn't make you it doesn't make you any of those things. But it does mean there's something there that is just not quite growing up to where you're seeking that level of gratification with the younger person. It's like you're aiming for it. It's almost like you won't achieve a level of sexual gratification unless you have that younger mate. And I'm always confused as to why men of that stature, especially of that age and stature, because a lot of the times the age just isn't enough. They have to actually have the power and the money to supply that. I'm just confused. I'm confused. I would like to know more about his
You know, I was always confused by that. Even like when dudes be talking about like they find Catholic school girl uniforms attractive and all. I'm like, all this shit.
It's nasty.
It's
nasty.
Yeah, you imagine kids.
And men won't admit to that because they feel like they're holding on to what's my preference, and it's not attached to nothing else deeper than that. No, it is. There's something in there that has not grown up. There's something in that is twisted, to where instead of you going ahead and seeking out, whether it be counseling or some type of understanding as to why you're thinking that way, you're just validated with other examples. Well, this person does it and no one says nothing about that. Or what about the young girl that aims for older men? It's like, okay, you don't have to be one of those older men that fall for that. You could have a standard. You can grow up at some point. At 41, I don't want anything to do with a 19-year-old girl. It's not a woman to me. You just got legal. And if you just turned 18, a day ago, you were 17. So all that, the people make a lot of excuses for the nonsense and Frank for saying, but the bullshit they want to put up with. And I do think people of that age need to look into why they seek that type of sexual gratification. Because it wasn't like a relationship. It's not like you love the person. It's not like you were looking for anything more than what this is. You were dealing with this woman solely for sexual gratification. Why?
And that's wild. And again, I just to put a bow on this, you know, we need all the facts to come out. The Tony Busby thing, again, I don't care what kind of sex she likes, and I don't care about the Tony Busby thing. Gives me considerable pause, just because I know his history even prior to Jay-Z. When the Jay-Z thing came out, I said, again, I'm listening to this accuser, and my inclination is always to lean. Women don't lie about being raped, is a general rule, right? Women don't lie about being sexually assaulted. Just statistically, the odds are minimal. Tony Busby, though, does. And so that's just a whole other variable that we have to think about. And it doesn't mean everybody who he represents is lying either. But I did think to myself, if you are a credible accuser, and you see what just happened with Tony Busby, and you know his history, why would you go to him, or why would you stay with him? Now, again, that doesn't mean they're lying. I'm just genuinely curious to understand what they're thinking. Were they perhaps already tied to him before the Jay-Z thing happened in the Diddy? It's Jay-Z and Diddy. Were they? Is there a legitimate, credible, reasonable explanation for why this happened? I don't want to assume the worst. Again, it's just hard not to assume the worst when Tony Busby's involved. So we're going to watch this carefully. We're going to watch it play out. The Diddy trial is coming up soon. There was talk of delay, but that trial is going to start in May. So we're going to have a lot to talk about and a lot to cover. I want to move on to something completely different, because it's late and it's sad. We done talked about Donald Trump, Pope Francis dying, and these awful stories of assault. So let's move on to something completely different. And Manny, I didn't tell you this ahead of time because I didn't want to scare you.
Okay.
But this is an intervention.
For who? Oh no.
So, for the audience's benefit, including you, Dr. Lindsay, we were having an episode of the Joe Budden podcast in which we were asked to offer our unpopular take, or what is a song that is popular? What is a record that everyone loves that we could do without?
Okay.
You would be shocked to know how many people chose Return of the Mac. There's another one right there. There's another. Even we interviewed Wiz Khalifa on a few days ago, and he also said Return of the Mac. Everybody says Return of the Mac. I don't know why people who do, and Jonte Austin hit me today and was like, anybody who says that is crazy. He said he's going to block anybody or unfollow anybody who says Return of the Mac is whack.
You do think you're one of the best,
as he should. He's right.
You like Return of the Mac?
That's fine. It's like earworm to me. It gets stuck in your head. I find it annoying. it's a tone thing.
Can I also preface this because I'm not sure if you guys saw, but the actor Miguel Nunez was just recently on a show, and he had explained that song initially was supposed to be given to Eddie Murphy.
Oh, I can see that. That makes more sense.
So when I listen to the song now, I like it even more now because that would have been Eddie's second hit. Eddie Murphy singing "Return of the Mac,"
or it would have been trash.
No, I hear the voice. I hear it.
I mean, I think like what would Party All the Time have been like if Rick James had sung it himself, or if he had given it to somebody who could sing.
What?
That song was made for Eddie.
Yeah, it was really made for Eddie. It's like kind of perfect for him. I do agree with that.
Certain songs are made for you. So when I listen to the Return of the Mac song, and I think a lot of people's complaints has been the vocals and they feel like it's a little annoying, it reminds me of Eddie a little bit.
A little annoying. Okay, so here's the thing. It comes
I'm grateful Eddie didn't get it, by the way.
And I have a visceral reaction to it. Hearing this Eddie Murphy thing is actually very interesting because I can now hear his voice singing it. And it does something different, maybe because he's a comedian. And I would be like,
exactly. You'd be clowning it.
No. It's just like it's supposed to be like my girl likes to party all the time. It's just like it's a bop because it's Eddie and it's funny and it's literally crafted for his voice.
It's
right?
supposed to be fun.
It's supposed to be. Return of the Mac, I feel like the singer, and shout out to him wherever Mark may be, really meant it in a way that then it becomes like I'm now assessing it as like a song that now stuck in my head and has this really weird tone to it that just doesn't do anything for me. You know, like my voicings, I really like richer voices, deeper voices, raspier voices. There are things about voice that just get to me.
Mark to me is someone who heard the song.
To be clear, that he means Mark Morrison, the singer
Mark Morrison. Yes. He's someone who oversang the song, which is what made the tone of the song annoying. It was a song that was written for a non-singer, and they gave it to maybe someone who can sing.
Right. This is not about Mark Morrison. Like, I don't think he is a terrible singer. Like, that's the weird thing. But it is a literal song for, you know, the person at karaoke who's had many shots of tequila, that it'll be fun if people are just singing it and the crowd joins in. But because he was so sincere in the performance of it, it's like a clash for me that doesn't work.
I get it.
Somebody said here, and this is fascinating to me because it makes sense. TMB said Jamie Foxx should remake it. I can hear Jamie Foxx singing the shit out of Return of the Mac.
I can.
I don't know why, but I might like it, dude.
I can. I understand why people don't like the song. It is a little bit of annoying. It is a little bit of too catchy. There's a moment where sometimes things get too catchy. I understand.
Yes, it becomes corny when it's too catchy.
There's a lovable corniness to it. There's a lovable.
No,
there is.
I leave the room when it comes up.
Almost like this is how we do it. Same thing.
So here we go. That was my choice when it came to me. Remember, I said this is how we do it. And again, shout out to Montel Jordan. He's my frat brother. I love him. And part of why I hate the song. I love Montel Jordan, but I hate the song is because white people got it. Their hands on it. Just like Shaggy, it wasn't me. They got their hands on it. And once they got their hands on it, it just became ridiculous. Second, actually, no, not just that one. They get their hands on Shaggy, period. That's a whole other conversation. But
Shaggy made his music for people to get they white people to get.
Yes, and I think I've accepted that, and that's just who Shaggy is. When I've traveled abroad, I was by myself, which again, judge me if you want, but I would travel to these resorts, these all-inclusive resorts by myself, and I would just be like at the bar, at the pool. And Shaggy, we play, and I'd be like in like Dominican or other places, and like I just remember being like by myself and thinking, why are these white people enjoying Shaggy so much? You're my darling baby, whatever that song is called. Like I couldn't take it.
It's a
and
tune.
And I was like, is this because I'm by myself? Like, then you start dating, you be like, oh wait, no, this song just sucks. It ain't about being alone. It's just this song sucks monkey balls, right? So then, I'm to use a technical term. Then I moved on, and I was like, Montel Jordan is in that slot. And part of it is that I'm a Kappa, and Kappas at Kappa events used to play you understand, to be a Kappa in the 90s. When your frat brother who just crossed into the frat has the #1 hit in the world, you're gonna play that shit all the time. Imagine if Drake was like well, I don't know what he'd be, maybe I don't know. But
he'd be an AKA.
That's the joke I had, and I went out of my way not to say.
I'm sorry.
So bad for you, my brother.
I had to.
That is absolutely correct.
I had to.
Oh, sorry to AKA.
he would absolutely make this a serious matter. Yo. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, sir. But
they gonna jump me if they see it. If he sees this, they gonna jump me, but it's fine. It's okay.
Man, I promise you, Drake hates everybody on the Joe Budden podcast just cause.
It's cool.
You ain't got nothing to worry about. But what were we talking about? Oh, right.
I want to know this Sade take.
Oh, right. So all this is prologue. It's a prologue Benon, as they say.
Okay.
So all of this is the prologue, or the prolegamenon, as they say, to the actual conversation at hand, which is that as we were giving our takes, my dear brother Imani says, I got one. And Imani, what did you say?
I said I could do without Sade.
Right. Hold on. Let me be clear. You know how like I said Return of the Mac, or I said this is how we do it, or people said he didn't say I could do without a particular Sade song. This niggero said I can do all of her.
Yeah. So let me also, because I want to do this thing where I no longer take back my takes by trying to clean it up. So I want to say before I say anything, I stand on my take. She can go. That does not mean I don't acknowledge that she's talented. Does not mean that I can't hear a song and tell that it's a well-written song. She's just never been my cup of tea vocally. I do think a lot of her big records, key records, are very similar in tone, in tempo, in style. And as someone who kind of likes a little bit more vast difference, I like to hear more. And I feel like everything I get from her is very whispery. I'll
be reading comments.
I know they're killing me. I'm trying not to watch it because I know they're gonna kill me. And listen,
you got a couple of acceptable.
Some people agree with you. Zakiya agrees with you, right? Agrees with you. She's beautiful, great, song, and soothing, but not a go-to.
I made sure I sat under my Stevie, my Marvin, my Prince, and my Michael pictures, just so y'all can know. I ain't just talking as someone who don't support or don't know R&B. But no, she okay, as someone who's very, very much so into jazz and the lounge and the cabaret as type style, which she embodies a lot of within her tone and kind of the swing of the music. I just think that there's a lot more people who were way better at what she did that just didn't get the attention because they weren't either as commercialized or as marketable. Hate to say it. I think that she does.
Don't put too much dip on the chip now, boy.
You know what? I'll say it. I think she's a very great one-trick pony.
And what's that trick? Making life-changing hits?
Give me her hits.
I think Love Is Stronger Than Pride would be, for me, the top of the chain for me. But I think everything on Lovers Rock was amazing. I think No Ordinary Love from that was also on the soundtrack of Indecent Proposal is great. Sweetest Taboo from the Promise album is crazy. I love the Love Rock By Your Side from Love Rock album. I love Cherish the Day from Love Deluxe. Your Love Is King, which was back in the 80s. I think that was Diamond Life. I can't remember. I think that was Diamond Life. I loved, honestly, Soldier Love album. I thought the Soldier Love album was crazy. I thought Soldier Love album was amazing. I loved Baby Father on there, and I loved, of course, the title track. I like that whole thing. Even Hove did a remix to it. You know what I mean? Those would be the big Sade hits for me. Smooth Operator. Smooth Operator is another big one. I mean, that's a huge one.
So let's just say you name about 7 to 10.
Okay.
Still great number for any artist to have. Shoot, one hit is great to have. Once again, I'm not saying she is not talented.
Of course, I get that.
But it's almost like when you do the I see a lot of these memes going around where they put like 4 separate artists in a box and they say one has to go.
Sade always has to go with you though.
I don't know who's going to be in those other boxes, but I'm almost sure Sade for me is going to be the one that's always going to have to go.
So let me put 2 people in the box that I know won't go. Aretha Franklin's in the box. I mean, that's a kind of unfair thing, but Patti LaBelle's in the box. Right. Now
put Anita in there.
No. Well, Anita's in the. And if Anita and Sade are in there, Sade's going. If I take Anita out and throw in Stephanie Mills, does Sade still go? I'm trying to understand how deep your hate for Sade is.
Okay, it's not hate, and
I know I'm being silly.
In that instance, just vocally, I just prefer Stephanie Mills more. I just prefer, like, I'm gonna always want to hear her sing, even if I don't know the song. I'm gonna want to hear her. Hear Sade. I would rather go, and that's why I was so huge on bigging up Samara Joy. Samara Joy, who is amazing to me. I don't need to know the song. I don't need to know if it's a hit. I'll go to Dizzy's Club anytime she's in town and sit there and watch her from start to finish because vocally she's
the beast.
It's just, it does something.
That's how I am about Layla Hathaway. That's how I am about that Diane Reeves.
Yes.
That's how I'm about Gregory Porter. That's how I'm about Gregory Porter. I'm the world's biggest Gregory Porter fan. And it's the same thing. It's like when I hear there's certain things that it's just your tone.
So can I then ask a question to Manny? This is interesting because I always ask in those box questions when one has to go, are we talking about the voice or are we talking about the discography? Right? Like those are different to me, right? So like if I have 4 people in a voice, like Stephanie Mills has a voice I can hear, as you said, singing. She can sing, the ABCs, and I'd be happy because there's just a voice thing that I love and what she's capable of. But there are folks who I know people love, like I love as a vocalist, but I could actually do without their discography.
Now that's real.
Right. I think, and that goes for singers who I think are some of the best singers ever. Discography, I'd be like,
I mean, I wouldn't say this in a lot of places, but I mean, Rochelle Perel to me is one of the greatest singers of all. Yeah, that's you sure about who?
Whitney Houston. That's how I feel about Whitney. Okay. I think Whitney is one of the most talented, amazing. That is God's voice coming through when she gets to sing as Whitney sings.
Right. But Whitney ain't got 10 songs that I
belies that, right? Yeah. I truly belies that. And that's for all kinds of reasons that is the case. But to like hear Whitney live, like in the 80s, just her singing and being like, even that introduction when we have her singing Home on like television before she breaks, before the album drops, it's otherworldly. But then you get, I want to dance with somebody and my name is not Susan. I could literally live without.
That song stinks. Let's be honest. My name is not Susan stinks.
Okay. This is okay. See, this is what I don't like. And let me tell you what I don't like. That is a fair take. That is a very fair take in regards to Whitney. But to hear that take, and then to hear the Sade take, and think the Sade take is off for anyone, to me is almost like it's
You're like,
almost
what's the difference?
it's no different. And I think Sade is held to I think Sade has the Lauryn Hill effect, right? And I'll explain what I mean by that.
You about to enter some dangerous water, my friend. Go ahead.
I think Lauryn Hill got to a certain point where she just did such an amazing job and disappeared. And I think we gave her icon status without her having to consistently build upon that one idea. So don't get me wrong. She did great with the Fugees, right? They were big, classic album, great. Her next album is amazing, classic. That's it. There's no
Here's my
longevity.
issue with that. Here's my issue with that. And I think some of it is gendered. Biggie got 2 albums. Lauren got more content than Biggie. Biggie got 2 albums. If you give me Vocab, I mean not Vocab. If you give me what's the album Vocab was on? Blunted on Reality. Sorry, the Saki's coming through. If you give me Blunted on Reality, you give me The Score, you give me Miseducation, you give me Untitled, and you give me various features. She got as much work as Biggie, more or less. If you give me Jimi Hendrix, she got as much work as Jimi Hendrix. More work than Jimi Hendrix, right? But nobody's out there like, Eric Clapton got more, so he's better, right? There's a way that I think with Lauren, we look at her relatively small discography, given how long she's been on the scene now, 30 years, 35 years almost. And we hold her to a different standard than we hold a lot of people who have similarly small discographies. I hear people shouting Big L out as one of the greatest MCs of all time. And so Big L ain't got 10 songs. So I'm being dramatic, but you get my point.
So I agree with you, which is why I would never fight anyone back in having that conversation about Biggie being held at a higher standard than what he might have should have. Of course, he only gave us 2 albums. He gave us 2 amazing albums. He did give us a great amount of features and post work and all that other stuff. But yes, if someone wanted to say we should not hold Biggie to a certain esteem because of his output, that's a totally fair thing. I feel it's the same thing with and anyone at that point that wasn't able to really fulfill and live out their full term where we can actually see the growth over a decade of time,
which is something else,
which I'm cool with. I just think those people that get to give us that amazing thing and then dip off for 10 years and become very like secluded and almost the mystique is built around them. Like they get to revel in that for so long. And sometimes I'm like, no, you got to keep putting out stuff. There's people out here that are consistently working that are not living off of their previous work 10 years later and still being deemed icons. And don't get me wrong, for what Sade has done, for what Whitney and all of, for what everyone has done, they are icons in what they have done. I'm not saying that they're not. But when I hear someone say that that's not my cup of tea, or that's just not my taste, I don't think it's so blasphemous. And there's a reason why they never grew with the times. What would Sade sound like today? What would she have sounded like 5 years ago?
She ain't dead. I mean, she gonna put out new music.
But she don't put out nothing. Would it be good?
Soldier Love has been 10 years. I'm old. Yeah, that's true.
Would it chip away from the legacy? Because, I
don't think so. I mean, you know what? I'll say this. It depends on the artist. And Treva, come on in with this. I mean, we've seen artists like Patti LaBelle, Aretha Franklin come back decade after. I mean, Aretha's first album came out in 1967 on Columbia, when she put up, she goes to Atlantic in 1970, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
You see that whole run on Atlantic Records. Then you see the run with, she put out that Curtis Mayfield album for the Sparkle soundtrack. She put out Amazing Grace. She put out One Faith, One Baptism. I mean, then she came out with A Rose Is Still a Rose in the aughts or the late 90s or the early aughts with that Lauren wrote for. I mean, so I've seen artists come back 40 years later. I mean, look at Charlie Wilson. Look at you freaking ass Ron Osley.
Can I pose this? If Nas had dropped Illmatic, It Was Written, and at that point he was already heralded like
the GOAT, one of the GOATs,
and then just stops. just stops. I don't think it's fair to continuously compare or say that he is one of the top echelon people within rap when he's not consistent.
Ooh, but we do it with Biggie all the time.
No. But I'm against that.
Okay, fair enough. Fair
I'm
enough.
against that.
Well, I'll say we do it. You just saying we shouldn't.
Yeah,
But jump on it.
I don't think we should.
Yeah, I mean, again, this more comes about like the terms of our debate more than whether we agree on particular artists or not, right? Because I think, Annie, what you're saying, right? There's something about like either consistency and output that's central to the way that you're assessing this and evaluating it. And for some folks, I just think if like an album that you made changed things for me, you literally could do nothing else, and it would never change the fact that at one point in time, you made this timeless thing, right? It's like conversation I remember happening on, what's his name's Apartheid Clyde's site now, years ago, about hits versus, right, like bops, and then like when a song is a hit and when a song is like a classic, right? And so the ability to continue to make hits is a very particular skill set, right? And that deserves its own kind of iconicizing that can happen. Like folks who can just come out and do a kind of thing and sound different and keep up with how things are sounding and doing that. Like I think, you see that more in writers and producers who are able to make that transition. Like I think about someone like a Babyface who across various eras of music has continued to make songs that can go to number one, right? That can still speak to a certain moment, or his album of like duets with like the younger R&B women. Like there's something very interesting about that. And I think there are people who have made a project or two that ground a particular era of music, that ground a particular sound or a movement or a moment. And no matter when you hear it, it still feels transformative, not just nostalgic, but it still has the power to do that thing it did when you first heard it. And so I think for someone like a Lauryn Hill, when people place her in that pantheon, I think it's because of that, and particularly like verses that are coming from the score, moving into, of course, Miseducation, even for some Untitled like myself, like it just, I can hear Lost Ones, and it's not just I'm thrown back to 1998. It's like I literally get that energy all over again. And so I think that matters deeply in terms of how I think about the process of who gets iconicized and why. And I think both are important.
So I'll say this. I agree with a lot of what you said. I do think that there's a such thing where we can also find a way to hold these albums to the esteem that they are, because at the end of the day, they are the albums that they are, but not also attach the success and the longevity of that album with the actual artist. First off, a lot of artists don't make albums on their own.
Of course.
So a lot goes into just that album being made, the producers, the writers, those people that a lot of times are really making the album and getting lost in just the artist being front and center, which I don't think is fair for a lot of people. Like when we talk about Miseducation of Lauryn Hill's album, a lot of people, the facade was that she came up with that album, and that was her baby, and that was her creation. And while yes, she's a part of that album, and she did, a lot of people know now that she didn't create that album on her own.
Absolutely.
And she wasn't a larger factor. She was the vocal point for it. So yes, we should still hold that album to the esteem that it is. It's an amazing album, but I want more credit to go to the album sometimes and not the artist.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And I think with that particular point, like neither Lauryn nor the other creatives who are part of Miseducation have had that success with any other project, right? That is absolute magic that happens with that kind of collaboration. Magic. And I think collaboration is iconic and important, and I completely agree with that. I think part of it for me is just, right, there's so much that happens with that as collaborators, as music, that we could do better about highlighting and amplifying, because I look at like, who is Whitney collaborating with that made it me? Like, why are we doing these songs versus this kind of thing, right? What is the trajectory that her career takes as a result of the kind of collaborative thing that happens there? Sade, the band, is a very particular collaboration. It is a very consistent collaboration. It is a vibe for me, right? Why Sade works for me as a band is because if I want to feel a particular way, it's multiple ways. There is some kind of emotional range that I feel when I'm listening to Sade, like, there's a difference for me between certain things, but there is a particular thing that I love that Sade the band does and Sade as the singer does that like feels very unique to me.
I think that's right. We could move on to this. I just want to add one more piece to this that may or may not be relevant. It's certainly relevant to me as an analyst. What? Why you make that?
All right, I'm scared.
No, not you. It was Dr. Lindsay who just made the face like, nigga, you ain't no analyst. I felt like I was so disrespected.
You felt personally attacked? I
felt personally attacked.
Sorry.
I'm just saying. There's a thing about Sade that I think we haven't addressed, and this is Sade performing in 2011. She's 66 right now. This was Sade in 2011. That means my math ain't good, but that means she was 42. No, 52, 51.
Looks amazing.
I'm just saying. Looks amazing. I have no deep analysis here except just to say, like,
put a picture of Sade on the screen.
I've
never met you at 52.
Listen, let me make it very clear. Now I might have said I throw away the music, but we ain't say nothing about throwing her away. Period.
I'm like, I love her. Like I said, I ain't got no analysis. I'm a whisper in my house. I throw my wife to sleep. She might not be, but I love her.
Watch it. All right.
Yeah, like play stupid games. Play stupid
games. Exactly. I be at home. I be homeless, singing "Love Is Stronger Than Pride" somewhere. So let me ask y'all a question. And this is not. I hate doing the whole "is this genre dead" thing, but
my favorite topic.
I thought about something. I thought about two things. One, growing up, we listened to R&B. I remember, and I'm a Luther Vandross stan. Again, yesterday was Luther Vandross' birthday. Rest in peace to Luther Ronzoni Vandross, the greatest that's ever done it.
Luther.
I remember hearing people talk about, that's really his first single because, Glow of Love was, we can talk about that. But hearing Never Too Much, and hearing people say it was a club song. Never Too Much was going off up in the clubs in New York, everywhere, but in New York in particular. And when I tell that to my students, they can't imagine a song like, they can't imagine Never Too Much going up in the club, because for them, the club is where you hear certain kinds of sounds. And Never Too Much isn't a club sound. Disco, they can almost make sense of, right? Because that's an era. But the idea of going to a club and hearing Never Too Much was crazy. Which to me, I can hear because I can imagine what the 80s sounded like, So there was a point here. And the point is, there was a moment where R&B was a thing that we heard in the club. There was also a moment when I remember I'm 46, so I remember being in I just remember being with my homies senior year high school, junior year high school. We were playing music, and a lot of it was hip hop. Most of it was hip hop, but it wasn't crazy to have an R&B song pop up in the tape deck, or on Power 99 or whatever was playing in Philly. Then I remember hearing a conversation, or I don't know if it's a conversation. I remember Joe Budden saying something about you, a Manny. He was saying, I like hanging with a Manny because we could be in the car, and I can play R&B. Right, because like two dudes in the car playing R&B, to some people feels like you can't do this, right? Like we need to be hearing something murder that's killed,
really emasculated, yeah,
right,
yeah.
So I don't even want to make this about masculinity. That's a different conversation for a different time. But what I'm thinking about is there's a way that there was a time when R&B was so mainstream and so pervasive and so a part of what we did that it didn't feel isolated to, bedroom music or to, certain like restaurant music or, going to the concert music. It was part of just broader Black pop culture. And I worry now when I go places where I would expect to hear R&B and I just hear hip hop. It makes me wonder about where R&B is. And then when I turn on the radio and I hear hip hop, but I don't hear nearly as much R&B. And then finally, when I listen to R&B music, some of it just feels like rap lyrics that are being sung. I'm not hearing bridges. I'm not hearing certain things that feel so integral to soul music and to R&B and to Black music and to race music, whatever you want to call it. Like I'm just not hearing those things. And I'm like, where are we? I'm just putting that out there. And man, I'm gonna start with you and then.
Okay. So mainstream R&B has lost its identity, especially on the male R&B side. A lot of the male R&B singers, first off, they're not being bred and breeded within the church, so they don't really know how to sing. A lot of them are just getting by off whatever 2 riffs that they learned from somebody else. And that's cool. That's cool enough. The lyrics are now structured based around hip hop records because that's more of the commercial appeal. So now you're trying to take hip hop records and make it appealing just for R&B sound. A lot of men stopped talking to please women within R&B. There's more misogynistic machismo thing going on within R&B instead of the begging, instead of the vulnerability, instead of all that. Because even you had club records that were still very vulnerable. You had club records that were still speaking of love. It was still speaking certain things. You don't get that today. Today, you gotta be talking about, excuse my French, how many bitches you fucking? Whatever other shit that makes sense to mainstream R&B today. And then just initially just the sound itself, the sounds that we use, the acoustic guitar, the, certain drum patterns, all of that is lost. And a lot of it comes from training. A lot of people just aren't trained through what R&B built you as. A lot of that to me started within the Black church. Some of these people just need to go back to church. Even if you don't believe in what you're going there for, even if you just want to be a good singer, go to church, go find something in there that you can attach yourself to, because a lot of that is just training.
That scares me because the data and my own experience and what I'm seeing on the streets, hear people talk about, is that the world's getting more secular, that this generation of Negroes don't want to be in church. And if the only way to get good R&B music is to get some church, I'd be telling Negroes to go back. But I'm worried, and I think I agree with everything you just said. I'm just worried that because of the trends we're going in, we're not going to see that. Like, we're not going to get there again. We're not going to get back there. And
or at bare minimum,
choirs, church choirs, all of it. I just don't know.
At bare minimum, Mark. At bare minimum, a real vocal coach. At bare minimum, some level of real stage presence, some level of, I remember, this is why you see R&B acts of the past be able to transition into movies or Broadway or anything like that, because there's something that still came with the stage presence, even in R&B.
Yes.
You couldn't just sit on the stage and not perform. Like, if you look at Gerald Levert is a perfect example of what an R&B singer.
I love his Gerald Levert.
Sing his ass off, he can perform, and he's gonna give you movement nonstop on stage.
Yo, out 280 pounds linebacker, he dancing, sweating like Heavy D. Like it was just a thing.
Yes, it was a thing to put on a show. And even when we go back to even just the church aspect. The church aspect, yes, you are connected with God in that moment, but you were still there to put on a show. You wanted the people in the pews to be like, that boy, Lil Robbie this week, he acted out.
Right. He got busy. Right.
So people just need to get back to some level of training, some level of really appreciating the art form for what it is. And just because you can hold the note and you can throw some tune on your thing, don't make you an R&B act. It just means that you a nigga or a niggerette that can just sing. That ain't enough for R&B.
Dr. Lindsay, what say you?
I agree. I mean, I don't think we're going back to the church, which is unfortunate, right? That there's so much Black church hurt that I think a lot of people are not being cultivated in a space of performance and recognizing Black church as a space of performance of like, sing, baby. Like when you're messing up, people come in. There's an A&R that's happening in church performance, church musicians, that connecting to someone, you are literally making people feel something, right? And perhaps if that was still happening, pastors wouldn't be up here asking folks to lock the doors to raise $40,000. But like
wow.
When we talk about dynamics in the church that are important to talk about, but I think that A&R, that training, we're such an instant thing right now. And so there's not development. There isn't that kind of boot camp of like, how do you connect? Perform for these 3 people and make me feel something when you're singing. That speaks to something very real. I mean, the defunding of music programs in schools, people not being musicians and understanding music in a particular way and what music is supposed to do both effectively and affectively, I think matters in this. But it also is about our relationships to one another. Like there's a distinct level of like dislike and contempt in kind of like the Black gender wars that I see that shows up in the music too. Not just in the sense of like how you're singing about bitches and hoes or like, I don't need you, I'm good if I'm this, whatever it is, right? There's a lot of music that's very dismissive of connection and intimacy. We don't slow drag. We don't partner dance. We don't have modes of intimacy that match that. And so whether it's music or it's dance or the way we connect and convene through the arts and through expression, we've lost so much of that. And I think it can be chicken and egg here, but I do think it mirrors a disintegration of how we talk to and hold space for one another. And I'm not just talking about romantically, because there are R&B songs that are about a love that's very different, that's not just romantic love, right? Mm-hmm. Ways that we love, how we show up for one another. Like, I was trying to imagine them trying right now to do like a remake of You Will Know, right? With that had all the brothers singing on it.
Oh shit!
Like I got and I mean the version when they're really going at it, like us is the young buck then, and Tevin's like, hold on, young man, and like Tevin singing, and Gerald comes in and calls those very talented men his background singers. Like it's just incredible. And every single person who's on that song and creators of that song, right? D'Angelo is a writer, Raphael Sadiq is in there, Dwayne Wiggins, like has a distinct voice and has such a distinct presence. And that's like a love among brothers, about loving brothers and showing up on. That's nothing to do with romance. And I just can't imagine that right now with the generation, a multi-generation.
I don't even know who would be in You Will Know. I mean, again, D'Angelo before he hit it big. Who else produced that? Someone else produced that too.
Brian McKnight, right?
That's what
Brian McKnight.
And it's like I don't even know if there's space in our. Like, I don't know who the Brian McKnights are. I don't know who the D'Angelos are. I don't know. I mean, You Will Know was like the We Are the World for Negroes, and it was like I don't.
I do want to say this though. There are very, very talented vocalists today that are not getting the shine that they should get. Kevin Ross is amazing. Luke James is amazing. Avery Wilson is amazing. Darren Bernard is amazing. Like, there's a lot of people who are great vocalists.
Yes.
The problem is that they're not mainstream enough at this point to get that level of attention. And for whatever reasons, they're not connecting. Connecting to the audience. And I just think the brand of R&B that they would like to specialize in just isn't mainstream today. It's just
that bugs me out. I mean, even the girls who are my age They had Another Bad Creation on the wall. They had Kid and Play on the wall. I'm dating myself a little bit, you know, but they had
than we are. Just so
I'm sorry. What?
You are in a different decade than Imani and I are.
Yeah.
Whatever.
We missed all.
But like we had like, but girls also got. I mean, they didn't know what they didn't know, but I'll just say that there were a lot of '90s R&B singers who they were in love with too. Their love was definitely unrequited, but most male '90s R&B singers were gay. But
I don't want to over romanticize. Like I've also been going back and listening to some R&B, and I'm like, dear God, this is rape culture. Like I was like, don't be afraid, and I'm like, what is happening right now? Like
that song is wild.
It's wild, but I also think that like I completely agree with the assessment. There are so many talented singers. Like everyone you named, I listen to them regularly. Like, but I know most people would know Luke James more for an actor, which he's great at, which he's phenomenal at as well. But that boy can sing. Like
he's different.
Sing.
He's another world of vocalists.
Oh my gosh, he's
Avery Wilson,
Duran Bernard, like. I don't even understand. And they are citational of singers of the past, of Sylvester, of Luther, of Donnie, of Mark.
Can I be a little controversial a little bit?
Please.
I don't want anyone to be offended by what I'm saying.
I mean, you already done said Sade ain't shit. You can't go no worse.
I do believe that there's a level of masculinity in a positive way that is missing from male R&B. And when I say that, and I think a lot of that is because some of the look has become a little softer. Some of the guys don't come off as the most appealing to the female base, either for the reasonings of them either not trying to really speak to the female base or trying to just cross over to a wider range. Damn, I want to just say it, but I don't want to get killed.
Hey, just say it. We here. We out here now.
I think a lot of male R&B acts are starting to straddle the lines between us not knowing whether they're doing their music for women.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's right. No, I think there's a. I don't want to go so far as say queering, although sometimes that's the case. But at the very least, there was a very traditional man want woman vibe. Like when Teddy Pendergrass say, turn him off. Like, you know what the fuck he's talking about. You know who he's talking to.
Okay. Well, another conversation.
Yeah.
So help me think through that, Treva. Like again, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I'm saying that
that's not what I'm saying. I mean, Teddy Pendergrass is a very interesting choice in that conversation, but
because of who was in the car when he was on Lincoln Drive.
Like I don't want to pretend to know anyone's sexual orientation or who they might have been singing to, not been singing to. This, right? If we pick your favorite, right? Luther was perfectly gender neutral, and like he doesn't say she like ever. Like it's really, and like so many of my favorite songs by him could be about anybody, right? It's not.
That's true.
Into
there he was this stranger.
There is a particular performance of masculinity and manhood that I think is not as present in R&B outside of the very like aggressive, like I'm doing this kind of predate. And I think all of us grow up in a heterosexual, heteronormative society. And so I think there is a thing with women also missing that, who identify as heterosexual, and like, where's that man that just sings to me and makes me want to throw my panties at him, right? Like that's still a desire. And it is a desire that's very much so entrenched into R&B's tradition and history. Whether that's good, bad, or whatever, I think that's real. And I think that speaks to the relationship that people have to R&B as a site where we think about sexuality and sex in very clear and unapologetic terms.
And I do want to point out, because I'm seeing a lot of people say it, there were acts within the past, Prince being the main one, who very androgynous, wore what he wore, did whatever he wanted to do, but was still a ladies' man. You could not leave Prince around your girl because she was going home with Prince. Isleys, they did it as well. A lot. I'm not saying that this didn't exist in a matter of dress, but I'm just talking about just there was that thing where when they sang, they were speaking to a certain level of relationship that I think today isn't highlighted in the most positive way.
So where do we find that, Imani? Do we find that in hip hop? I mean, like, or is it nowhere?
I think there's currently artists who are pushing that envelope more than others. I think Lucky Day is a perfect example of someone.
I love Lucky Day,
who is very much so gives off man's man while still being able to adjust to this era's new look and new sound in ways. Kevin Ross as well, another person I think does it. Tank has just always been Tank, of course.
Tank is Tank, and again, coming out of the black church, he's kind of the first type of what you're talking about.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that just need that attention put on them in a positive way to allow them to create the music that they want to create and not be told that in order for you to be mainstream within this generation, you have to blend between the two and leave things more open than what you might want to leave them in messaging or even in look. As someone who's been an artist, I've had that experience. I've had the experience of being told, hey, you're just a little too masculine in your dress. And I'm like, I don't understand what that means. I'm just making music for my experiences and the things that I love and how I want to express myself in R&B. And it's like, okay, well, that's now considered adult contemporary. And only the old.
That's interesting. And
the old niggas gonna listen to that. That's what I'm told. Only the old niggas gonna listen to that. You need to come do some of this so that
it's an interesting thought, though. Before we go, there is an interesting sort of idea there. This generation of R&B singers, this generation of artists is very different in terms of how they think about sexuality, in terms of how they present themselves. Even, I'm fascinated by it because when I think about all the people who I like now, I don't, Well, let me pull Chris Brown out for a minute because I think he's actually an interesting figure too. Because there's a way that he's a throwback, right? He represents, or not throwback. He represents a kind of transitional figure where he does the young thing, but he's very clearly old school as well, and brings all the baggage with him as well, which unfortunately a lot of black male R&B singers do, right? So again, he's not different in that way.
Tradition.
He's in the tradition in the worst ways, right? In the best ways and in the worst ways. He's churched. He's an extraordinary vocalist. He's an extraordinary performer. He grinds. He works. He does all the things you do. But he's also, when we read the stories of Sam Cooke, when we read the stories of all these black male R&B singers, we also hear these awful things. So, he's in the tradition in every way possible. I don't even know what the question is as much as, sort of, how do we think about the future of R&B in light of that, Treva?
I'm still encouraged, and maybe that's just the like hopeful person who is a listener and grew up in a household where music was so central, and that there are people seeking that I have a 10-year-old who is obsessed with Donny Hathaway, right? In my life, right? Like they're finding, so we have to think about what does technology offer us, right? So there's the things that it feels like it's taken away and made us less connected. So what does the openness of this generation offer us in terms of an opportunity to develop different kinds of listening practices, right? And I think that there's a real opportunity. There's still a way that these singers and these kind of voices, I was like, oh, you like this? Let me play this for you. Let me play this for you. Oh, this is a sample of this. I think we have to be better stewards of this thing. I think we say
that's interesting.
That we're R&B is dead. This is happening. This, right? In my day, it was this, right? And I've tried to avoid that as much as possible, but I also know that there is something different happening. So how do I speak into that difference, acknowledge and affirm that their listening practices are different, but grow the listening practices, lean into the openness of this generation, lean into the fact that we have technologies where I have an archive where I can go and have them listen to blues from the 1940s and also listen to something that just came out, right? What are the opportunities that we have in this moment? How many young people went and saw Sinners this weekend? Or
Yo, did y'all see Sinners, by the way? Did y'all see Sinners?
Absolutely. Opening weekend.
Amazing,
right? I don't even do horror. I mean, I live in the United States, so I'm doing horror, but like do horror as a genre because we're living in one. So I think that like just being able to like point out to young people, and I saw this in the theater, younger people, of like, that's Buddy Guy, right? Like, this is this music, like what they did. There's a really powerful scene. I don't want to do spoilers that just connected so many things. There's an opportunity here, right? I mean, Miles's voice, one of the characters in this who plays Sammy, is just a revelation.
amazing.
Film. His voice sounds like something from another era, and at the same time, it's the future. And so, yes, I'm saying horror, not whore. I just love comment. My DC accent.
Horror is not my thing.
So I just think that I want us to be teachers. I want us to be stewards. And I think those of us who are holding this banner and see the possibilities in the thing and know these singers and know who they are, open that archive and that wealth of knowledge to folks and learn from them as well, what they're hearing. What are they listening to? What is it that's striking about these gender fluid voices? Like, what are we missing, right? Our ears are generationally trained differently. So we're not even hearing the same thing they're hearing, although we're listening technically to the same thing.
Amanda, before we go, this will be the last word. You have an album, an EP. It's called Before Her. And for those that don't know your body of work, that's part of a kind of streak or kind of series is probably a better way of saying, of albums, right? That deal with this question of her. And in that way, I think you are very much part of the tradition of R&B singers, right? Because you thinking about her, you worried about her, you trying to figure her out. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a her for you that's very real. And that speaks to your how can I put it? Your discography, your music, like you make music about loss, you make music about love, you make music about passion, you make music about falling in love. You know, that shit to me is dope and it's beautiful and it's what makes you such a great artist. How do you think about your work and how do you think about the projects you're putting forward?
You know what's the funniest part, and I didn't realize as I was trying to make these her projects. So from the start of just even falling in love with the idea of creating projects, I wanted to treat them like movies. And in a sense of there needs to be a starting point, there needs to be a story that's told, and we need to get to some type of resolution at the end. And then as I kept doing them, I was like, this is continuous. This is less than it's less of a movie and more like a show because it's something consistently happening. And it's a very intriguing show because while a lot of people believe that I'm talking about a specific woman or a multitude of women, I'm really not. Like the women or the woman who happen to be the subject matter at the point are the very least important of the whole story. It's really me finding myself through these multitude of women. And then the bigger conversation is, okay, well, why do you need to find yourself through these women? Which the next project will kind of like describe why I even have that type of body of work going. And it's a much deeper conversation than a lot of men would want to admit. But it falls back to home and how you're trained to love and who's the person who trains you to love and your first remnants of love. So now getting to that point where, you know, I did my first project at 27 years old. I'm 41 now. I'm able to say that now in confidence that this isn't about a woman. This whole dialogue and this whole journey through music was never about a woman. It was about myself and how I was taught to love by, you know, the most important woman of my life, which, you know, you can translate as my mother. You could also translate as in music, you know, it's all up for interpretation by the person listening. But for me, it's been so therapeutic to finally get to this point. My next project will be the last time I ever do a her project because it's what I needed to get to, that understanding of why do I keep wanting to center my music based around this theme, the her. And It's fun. It's fun, and
Sounds amazingly fun.
yeah, it's my way of also giving back to the genre that I love more than anything. Like I love music. I'm in love with R&B. Two different things. I'm never not going to be in love with R&B. I'm going to do R&B. If I ever create a project, it's always going to be R&B centered. It's the one thing in my life that has always remained. No matter what other brands I might have tapped into, no matter how many artists I might have worked with, R&B has always been home.
Wow. Well, that's beautiful, man. Thank you for that, and thank you for breaking it down for me. I gotta get to bed because I got a long day in front of me tomorrow. I know, Manny, you can relate, and I'm sure Dr. Lindsay, you can relate as well. But thank y'all for joining me tonight, man. We had a great conversation. Y'all broke a bunch of stuff down. This is fun, Nate. And man, how's it feel to be on night school?
I love it. I watch. I'm very happy that we didn't talk about Kanye.
Yo, and don't think I didn't have a whole thing lined up. I before we got on, I literally was watching Kanye. I read the tweets. I heard the stories.
Thank
you, and I really do appreciate that.
Fair enough. And Zane Khan said, "Tell me you saw Joe sitting behind 50 at the game." I don't know if that's for me or for you and Manny, but we do have jokes tomorrow for that, for sure.
Yes, I'm gonna go crazy tomorrow.
It's gonna be nuts. Everybody, make sure you check out Treva B. Lindsay's wonderful, extraordinary book. It's called America Goddamn. It really is an amazing book. Check it out. And go download, stream, or buy. Do all the above, as a matter of fact. Manny's amazing EP is called Before Her. Yo, thank y'all, man. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you, Mark.
For sure. Everybody, that was Night School. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the join button. And become a part of the channel. Become a part of what we do here every single night on the channel, because we need your support. This is an independent media project. We don't have a corporate dollar behind us. We don't have a mainstream outlet underwriting us. We do this on the muscle. So I need your support to make sure that we can continue to put this stuff out. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, but yes, hit the join button and become a monthly paid subscriber to the channel. Also, if you can't do that, go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle. I'm asking you to go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle and drop something in. It could be $1. That's fine. It could be $1 million. That's better, but all fine. And anything in between, we're grateful for. So just thank you. Thank you. And I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.